All right, let's get Zach inside here. Let's also record this to the cloud. Okay. What's happening? Zach. Zach attack. How's lending? Hey, what's going on, Zach? Can you hear me? Side here. Let's also record this to the
Yeah.
cloud.
Can you hear me?
Loud and clear, brother.
Awesome.
How are you, man?
Good. How you doing?
I'm doing excellent. Hey, nice. Out of Pennsylvania on the East Coast.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. You're in Arizona, right?
Yeah, I'm in Arizona, but I'm originally from New York.
Oh, cool. Nice.
Yeah, man. Dude, so first off, I gotta say I appreciate you for hopping on, making some time. I love doing these like once a year. I'll usually open up the calendar and it's how can I help? It's just based around whatever I could do, whether it's like real estate, whether it's mindset, whether it's I had one person that was actually like, yeah, I just wanted to hang out for like 30 minutes. I was like, oh, cool. Hey.
No,
So
yeah, I appreciate you doing this. I know you're super busy and all that. I saw your post. I think it was like the beginning of the month, and I think this was like the first slot that I saw that was open at like the very end of the month. So even like right after you posted it, I hopped on. Everybody else must have jumped right on it too.
dude, heck yeah, man. I freaking love it. So I mean, like kind of catch me up to speed, like where are you at with things and how can I help?
Yeah, no, I again I appreciate you doing this, but so I've been in sub two for about 15 months and jumped into the zero to hero, just did the wholesaling thing. I was like, I don't really know what to do, but hey, there's a guideline. Let me just follow this and that way it's a clear path. I'm really good at just like, checking boxes and doing tasks right from my W-2 as a mechanical engineer. So, the goal is to, I thought it was to build this wholesaling business and buy properties along the way while making some money wholesaling and all that. And so I've been doing that for 15 months, have, a handful of wholesale deals that I've gone through in the process of buying a burr and doing a wrap. So got a couple of things going on in real estate. I met my business partner back in September and we've been working together. He's been doing more of the visionary stuff, lead follow-up, closing, all that stuff. And I've been doing a lot of the integrator stuff, setting up our systems and kind of the transaction coordination stuff, contracts, and kind of seeing everything from when he closes it to getting buyers lined up and all that finished. So that's kind of where I'm at real estate wise. And like I said, mechanical engineer, W-2. It's a good job. I just don't love it. It's not something I see myself doing for the next, 30 something years or whatever it's going to be, sitting behind a desk every day, getting told what to do and when to do it.
That's fair.
And then I also coach CrossFit on the side and nutrition coaching at the gym that I've been doing.
That explains your forearms, bro. Like your forearms came up for a second and I was like, this dude's jacked.
Thanks. So like health fitness, like that's a huge part of my life. Like that's not anything that I feel like I need to work on. I do work on it. Like that's no problem. Like I just love doing it. So I love coaching and doing all that stuff. But I guess what I'm looking for outside of just kind of trying to meet more people in general. So I'm trying to figure out, like, mindset's definitely a big issue for me. But when it comes to real estate, I want to buy properties, right? I want to get the cash flow. I don't know if I necessarily want this massive empire of millions and millions of dollars worth of real estate, but the cash flow to be able to focus more on, the health and fitness coaching at my gym, being more a part of that. And so I started this wholesaling business because I thought that's, it's just like, okay, it's just an easy path, or at least there's a clear path to do it. And it's been a year, I'm starting to realize that, like, I don't know if I really love it. Like doing even all the integrator stuff, like as an engineer, like spreadsheets, all that stuff is cool. I'm good with that. But just like keeping up with the leads and managing all the systems and stuff like that, it's just becoming something where so it's like I'm realizing I'm not really enjoying it. But I've built up all this momentum, I feel like, but at the same time, it's just like I feel like I want to try to figure out if there's another way or something else that I could be doing, and I just don't know what that is. So like I said, I want to buy. I have a W-2 that's pretty steady income, which is good. So yeah, that's just, I feel kind of like I don't know where to go next or what to do. So
No, 100%. I appreciate, by the way, like the background, like seriously, it helps immensely. So, you're doing the wholesale right now. You're good with the integrations, good with systems, processes, things of that nature. You're seeing as you're putting this business together, it is definitely it takes a lot of, there's energy involved in putting this together. Whereas it sounds like what the allure of real estate was the passive nature of potentially creating that income where you can go and put yourself where you want to be, even if it doesn't necessarily pay the bills. Like CrossFit isn't necessarily going to allow financial freedom in the way that you want to do it, but the real estate could at least take care of everything else so that you can go do that.
Yeah.
Right. That sounds like pretty accurate.
Yeah.
So what's cool is you have you're still, I'm assuming you're still W-2 employed, correct?
Yes. So that's the other caveat too that I want to clarify. So I'm having a baby in May.
Oh,
and
sweet, congrats.
Thank you. So our first one, so I'm taking 12 weeks of FMLA, 12 weeks of unpaid leave from my job. So in my head, I'm kind of figuring out, okay, before it was like, I have money, but not time. And now it's going to be the opposite end where I'm, my wife's still getting money, but I'm not getting money, but now I have more time. I'm going to have the baby, but I'm still going to have significantly more time because I'm not 9-10 hours a day in my W-2. So in my head, I'm trying to think, okay, I want to do things that I enjoy because I want to do it. But I'm trying to prepare myself in the next 7 weeks of like, okay, what can I structure? What can I focus on while I have this time off that will go in the direction that I want to go and get me to where I want to be?
Beautiful. So from everything I've heard so far, like the little bit I've heard, you're not necessarily wanting, like your dream and goal and desire wasn't necessarily like, hey, I want to go build the largest like wholesale business. If anything, and I always like to get clear on this, was wholesaling a way of creating some additional income to have like essentially like a lump sum to then be able to go out and do other things?
Yeah, and control access to the deals. And, I didn't know where else to start. And the Zero to Hero was like a great, like, hey, do this, then do this, then this. And now it's like, okay, I'll just at least start with that.
All right. So wholesale was more about sourcing deals, like sourcing good deals.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Awesome. But the end goal was always to buy. And have you guys started buying anything yet, or has everything just been wholesaled out?
Everything's just been wholesale. We're in the process of buying, or we're doing a burr up in the mountains near us. But that'll be my first one. Yeah.
All right, perfect. That's cool because essentially what I like to identify is you've got two main things. You got your active income and then you've got the passive income. Or put another way, earned income and then passive income. And the thing with earned income is like we buy and sell to create cash, right? So that's your wholesaling, that's your rehabbing. That's your W-2 job. You're selling your time to create cash. So ultimately you have to have something that's an earned income strategy, right? This is the well that you pump, that you actively pump. Now, ideally, you want to know to what point do you want to be working this earned income strategy? And I find a lot of folks, we don't always identify where's the exit. Like at what point when the plane is flying up, do we jump out, right? Like there's a certain elevation that we hit or altitude that we hit. And then you see the skydivers begin to jump out because they know, hey, at 18,000, that's when we're jumping. So have you identified essentially the number for you guys from a wholesale standpoint of like, hey, at this number, we are now purely focused on holding because we've built up enough of the nest egg to weather the storms?
Not really, no.
So I would say that's one thing, like if you're taking any notes or anything, like let that be a conversation with you and your partner, you and your wife, you and yourself. What's our exit number of the earned income side? Right? Like what's the number that we want to hit where essentially I feel like I've bought myself enough of a runway and I've given myself the resources to now go and build the next thing. Very similar to, money is a tool to be used. So we want to make sure that we know what we're going to use it on. So the money that you're working for on your earned side, you're using that money to go and buy a machine and that machine prints more money for you. So with that being the case, like, cool, how much do I need? Right? If I'm going out and I'm gathering firewood, I don't want to get caught up in just gathering firewood for the sake of firewood. Oh yeah, that's right. I was gathering this to start the fire so that when I start the fire, I could cook the hog. Right. So it's remembering why we started, because in the grind of it, like in the hustle bustle of it, we sometimes forget where we were even originally heading. And so then we will end up working past the point where we should have jumped out of the ship.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yep.
So I think that's going to help because essentially when you know that, essentially because it's identifying the end, and you as an engineer, you know this, like they probably come to you and they say, Zach, this is what we want to create. They probably don't tell you how to create it. They probably just tell you what they want to have happen. Like, hey, this is what success looks like. Success looks like the app does this, or the computers talk to each other in this way. and they just describe that to you. And then you can go back in and you can start figuring out, okay, this is how we're going to make that work. Right. So it's going to be the same thing here for you, describing, okay, I know passive income so that what's good, you know, this passive income so that you can ultimately have a position to pour more into the personal fitness and health and things of that nature, which requires you to have X amount of time so you can feed yourself, get the rest, come home, take care of family, like, and you can spend yourself on that stuff. So I'm sure you've identified a number for that number as well, right? Like how much does that particular lifestyle you're looking at living, how much does that lifestyle cost?
Right. Yep. I have.
Awesome. So then when you back that out, how many properties does that equate to at the number you're looking at for each property to produce as an income standpoint?
Right. Yeah.
Have you identified that one?
It's like 10 properties. Yeah.
Dope. So 10 properties, right? And is it like 10 doors or is it 10 properties, like 10 like duplexes and?
Yeah. 10 doors is fine. Yeah.
Awesome. So 10 doors, right? Now, have you identified what each door requires as a war chest or as like a nest egg to sustain and hold the door regardless of what's happening in the world?
You mean like how much is bringing like net a month?
Not how much will bring in net a month. Hopefully you've already figured that out. You
Yeah.
figured it out. If you know 10 doors is going to
Yeah.
get you to your number, you've already figured that number out. But essentially, how much it's going to cost you to own these 10 doors. Because essentially we have war chests. Like I own portfolio of property. This is why having an earned income stream matters so much, is holding assets costs money to hold assets.
Mhm.
So you want to be able to have like a nice healthy war chest of, you know, X amount of dollars, depending on your risk tolerance and depending on the condition of the properties. If you're up in PA where properties are going to get weathered a little bit more, they tend to be older homes. Your war chest might be larger than somebody who's maybe in like in Arizona where it's consistent weather all year long and the homes are, you know, 40, 50 years newer.
Right.
You know, so you might say like, hey, we comfortably want to make sure that every property has $20,000 of like a war chest behind it so that we can move forward, which in essence puts us at like, hey, we need to generate $200,000 of like this bucket money here from our wholesaling operation, which means great. Our wholesale operation needs to produce $200,000 for us to jump ship or produce additional $20,000 for us to go and grab a new property each time. And then this starts to create a better target from the wholesale operation, because now we're not just doing meaningless work. It's very purposeful work that isn't just like, yeah, well, the deal is in it of itself like the goal. It's like, well, no, that's just what you need to then take the next portion of the quest.
Right.
Make sense?
Yeah.
You know, so it's like having that understanding of why you're doing and where it's leading to, you're going to find that that starts to feed energy and clarity into the actual doing and like figuring out what should I be doing with my time. Because now it's like, okay, cool. I'm not wholesaling. I'm building up the passive income. Like, although I'm doing an earned income strategy, I'm actually every day when I show up, what I'm doing is I'm getting ready to be able to go and pursue my passion of CrossFit and like really push myself as far as I can as an athlete, knowing that my family is still being taken care of so I can focus on the skill free.
Right.
You know, because like that's definitely, it's necessary from that standpoint to have that sense of clarity, especially when you're about to be given your time. It's a blessing sometimes to have a W-2 because it limits how much of your own time that you get to spend, and you get to see how you manage that small amount of time that you do have. Would you say you're pretty good about managing the current allotment of time that you currently do get?
Yeah.
Awesome. You know, and like just based off of like your like personality types of engineers, I would say most engineers usually are. Now let me ask, with the partnership, and sorry if I'm asking like a ton of questions. With the partnership, are you and your partner looking to continue doing the holds together? Like when you ran the number for 10, was that based off of like you two owning the 10 together, or is it like based off of you having 10 and your partner having 10?
Yeah, that was just individual.
Okay. So, and would you guys be holding property together, or is the partnership primarily wholesale and then you do your own things outside of that?
Just the wholesale is kind of mine, and he kind of we're like JV on everything on that, but we're actually buying the Burr property in another like together.
Okay, cool. So what's going to be interesting, and this is a fun thing to learn, holding assets is a totally different business. I learned that the hard way, right? I learned how to wholesale. I did not learn how to manage assets. So what's freaking phenomenal is you're a checklist guy. Holding assets require a checklist, right? So you're gonna blow me out of the water in that category of like figuring out, hey, this like when we purchase the property, this is what we're gonna have to do. We're gonna have to get like electricity cut on and this cut on and utilities and insurance and this and this and this and this and having all that stuff and making sure that someone is physically clicking everything. And then knowing that, hey, next year, some of these things are going to turn back on and we have to readdress this stuff next year. And some of the stuff we're going to have to address in 6 months and just formulating that checklist as you go through that first property. Right. With identifying how you two plan to hold the properties together. Have you all had the conversation about what that looks like from a standpoint of, when do we pay ourselves? Have you guys had that conversation about things like that?
Not yet, no.
Okay, that'll be an important one that you want to have. Everyone's in a different financial situation. What I would recommend to you is something I didn't do, which I wish I did do. Luckily I got lucky with my partner, but if I had to start a new partnership today with somebody else, a conversation I would have with them is very simple. It's like, hey, how much money is in your bank account right now? How much money are you earning outside of us working together? What do you expect as far as like payment? Like, are we okay leaving money in this? Do you feel like every month you're going to want to take profit right away every month? Like, let's have that conversation, because if something happens and the property isn't producing or it's even requiring us to put more money in, will they be willing to, and will they have the ability to also pour in with you as well? And do you have that agreement on the front end versus finding out and being surprised later on when the uh-ohs do happen? Really important conversation to have. Because again, holding assets, the reason I say you want to have that war chest, the reason we buy properties from tired landlords isn't because the properties don't work. It's because when the properties temporarily turn off and need to be fixed, they don't have that war chest to fix it. And so then what was a little problem becomes a big problem and it causes them to liquidate at a loss. So like that's really important to think about. And this is why you'll see there is somewhat of a progression of people primarily go earned income or wholesale or fix and flip first, then buy and hold second, because this allows them to have the reserves to hold these through the weathering.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense.
Awesome. So I said a lot there. So I'm gonna pause for a second. And did I address kind of what was going on in your mind?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, awesome. So with that being the case, I love that you you being the integrator and like knowing where you want to go. It's just gonna be having a deeper sense of clarity, because I get a sense that you feel like you could be doing more, but maybe you're not producing at a higher level that maybe you're used to in other areas of your life.
Yeah, definitely.
Do you feel that your focus is on multiple things, or do you think it's pretty narrow and linear?
I would say it's all multiple things.
Okay. And typically, and the reason I ask that question is just because the 15-month time frame that you explained, like it's possible to do a lot in that time frame, and you've done stuff. Like seriously, like give yourself a pat on the back, no joke. I know people that have gone 15 months and produced nothing. So the fact that you've produced is phenomenal. Narrowing the focus in, and the reason I asked this question also is because we're from the same community, and like I know inside our community it's like shiny objects like no other. Like I can't tell you the last time I've been on a Zoom call, because I don't go on them anymore. I think if someone's brand new and they're discovering what they want to do, hit up all the Zooms, have fun, right? It's like going to community college and just trying liberal arts and trying a broad array of classes to see what sticks. once you start to identify this is what I want to do, begin to kill the noise and get lasered in. And then really the word that you're gonna get really familiar with is no. Like, nope. Hey, you want to come on this? Nope. Hey, are you tuning it? Nope. And also the questions like who? Like when people are like, hey, did you hear about what so-and-so did? Who? Because what's happening is you get so into your own world. And maybe you've experienced this like in your W-2, like if you've like got so focused in on work because you were given the very specific task. And then once you were given that, like you were able to put the blinders on and just kind of you forget what the rest of the company is even doing. Like you're just zoned into your own lane, just taking care of what you need to take care of, and you look up when you're done. It's going to be the same thing here. Like the toughest thing for you as an entrepreneur is going to be you've got to be the person that creates your own blinders, and you've got to create your own sandbox for you to play in, where there are rules and parameters that essentially create the game. But without those rules and parameters, without that, then the game has no meaning, it has no purpose. And then ultimately you can't get better at the game. Like the game actually needs restrictions in order for someone to improve at it.
Right.
You know, so you're about to come into a lot of time. I think we already addressed that. You're going to want to talk to your partner and like your wife and your family to kind of figure out what that number is for you from an earned income standpoint. And then have you guys identified like what you're within now wholesaling, what your particular lane is? Like, is it cash? Is it creative? Is it direct to seller? Is it direct to agent? Like, have you identified that as well?
Yeah, we're direct to sell right now for sure.
Okay.
And we've been mostly cash, but it's been kind of switching towards, we've been trying creative, but it's been mostly cash right now.
You're gonna find that wholesale, no joke. You're in 15 months, so you've been in for a decent amount. However, you probably missed the early days when, or maybe you've gone through the Zoom vault. You would have seen back in the day, Pace used to say his wholesale business, he has a wholesale business, and then he has a creative finance business. And they are exclusively separate. The reason being was the wholesale business only focused on one strategy: cash. Cash, 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 cash. The reason being, wholesaling works best with cash. Can creative finance deals be wholesaled? Of course they can. Would I ever create a business model around it? Absolutely not. Because it's not as scalable. Doable, 1000%. As scalable, not yet. But cash is a little bit more simple. It's easier because with a creative, there's a lot more moving parts, and more moving parts equal higher level of complication and more things to worry about when it comes to scaling.
Right.
So he has his wholesale business, and then he had a creative business that would take the dead leads from his wholesale business. In other words, this wholesale company was looking for cash deals. It was looking for cash deals because at the end of the day, cash deals are what? They're going to be around no matter if the market's up, if the market's going down, or if the market's going sideways, because cash deals are typically 8 out of 10 times distressed houses or distressed people.
Right.
So it makes it a lot easier to find those people, because in a good economy, distressed people still exist, distressed houses still exist. In a bad economy, distressed people still exist, distressed houses still exist. So getting dialed in on that is never a bad thing. You know, so it's like, it sounds like your marketing is your market. Do you feel like your marketing is dialed in?
Yeah, it's definitely, it's good. Yeah, it took us a little while, but we got there. Yeah.
Heck yeah. So where, if anywhere, do you feel that there's maybe any potential hiccups, whether it's the business or whether it's even like for yourself personally?
I guess just having confidence in that, and faith in what we're doing is going to continue to work. And, because it's like, oh, we get a wholesale deal and then we spend money, and, it's like slowly goes back down and we get the wholesale deal. And it's just like riding the ups and downs. Like that's my issue, is just like on the day to day, it's like things are going really great. And then it's like, oh no, things are, struggling, and then things are really great. So it's just like kind of riding out that roller coaster of the ups and downs.
100%. Okay, I know that feeling big time. Like, not a very comfortable feeling, not a fun feeling, often. Do you guys follow a financial system as well, like a profit first kind of situation?
No.
That's going to help a lot. Like it'll help big time because this is the nature of like essentially like earned income strategies if we're in a niche industry, or if we're in a niche thing, there's going to be ups and downs to like it's the nature of anything like what we do. Unless you become an Amazon, in which case you sell so many things that when one thing is down, something else is up, and it keeps this like steady curve going in this direction. So with that being the case, knowing that will happen until you get enough volume for it to not be felt anymore, the profit first system will be extremely helpful, because essentially when that money comes in and it's like, hey, we're on top of the world because we have this money, and then we kind of start spending until we're back down. That's going to continue to happen, but what are we spending on? A portion of that money needs to be spent into the war chest account, and like it gets paid like you're paying your taxes. Like I'm never going to see that money again. In essence, like mentally how we think about it. Then the some of it gets paid to you as a profit. I'm never going to see that money again, or the business is never going to see that money again. And then operating expense, and wherever the monies go, it goes out. However, at the end of the day, let's say the business imploded tomorrow. If the business imploded tomorrow, you still have work. Like there's something to be had for the work you did today. What more often occurs, and this is what personally happened, even in my own world, I like woke up one day and realized like, if the business stops right now, I don't actually have anything tangible to show for it. And I was like, like I have new skills, I have experiences, I have stories and memories, but I don't have anything tangible to show for it. And that was an issue. So the profit first model helps prevent that issue, because before you get a chance to lose the money, you purposefully assign it a job. So profit first, if you haven't read that book yet, I would highly recommend it. And then there's even David Richter rewrote it for real estate investors, profit first for real estate investors. And then if you bank with Relay is good. I would, for like my wholesale company, I would leverage Relay. The reason being is they let you have as many checking accounts and you can make as many transfers without any fees. Because I also bank with Chase for my contractors, for like when I'm doing flips, because it lets me Zelle. Relay doesn't yet have the Zelle capability, but in a business like wholesale, where you're not necessarily having to continuously transact money out, I would say it's perfect for being able to have money come in and go out. So if you're not banking with them yet, I'll shoot you over a link so that you can get with them as well. Because I think I worked out an affiliate link with people as well, where they get like, you get like something for like a bonus when you jump in. I forgot what it was, but it's just like a bank. I use like a few of my businesses, not all of them, but a few of them.
It's all virtual.
Yeah, it's all virtual. That's a cool part. Like you can set it up virtually in about a day or two. Not even like it's one day. You set it up and like I think maybe it'll take like 15 to 20 minutes to get set up over the computer.
Okay. And how does that work with like, would both people need to be on the LLC to open it through them, or like?
Yep. So if you have an LLC, it's going to ask for your, just like if you went to the physical bank, it'll ask you for your operating agreement. And then it'll see who the owners are, and then both people will have to supply their documentations. And what's cool is like they do it all through the cell phone.
Sweet.
But that will be really helpful with the ups and down portions of it. Like bookkeeping definitely helps take a lot of stress off your shoulder. I wasn't a fan of bookkeepers until I hired one, and I was like, okay, this was definitely this is worth money from just like a peace of mind standpoint.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome. Also, you said, or at least I think I heard, it might have been just like my mind, kind of like almost like the belief system for it, like the belief that it'll happen.
Yeah, like I mean, yeah, that's the thing, is like, well, I don't know if I don't know if I believe it'll happen, that it'll continue to happen, that it'll continue to work.
So what's interesting there is, it's cool. This is like an interesting thing. We're allowed to be afraid. However, we can't be doubtful. We can be afraid, but not doubtful. because being afraid is perfectly normal. In fact, it's encouraged because ultimately that's where courage comes from. Like if I'm not a little afraid, if it's not making me uncomfortable, it means I'm not doing anything new. I'm not growing. However, doubt is me starting to question all the ways it could not work out. And if I look for the ways things won't work, I will absolutely find the way things won't work because we're good like that. We'll find whatever we're looking for. So faith is an interesting thing because faith is essentially, it's asking for your belief without providing proof or evidence. Like that's what faith is. It's like, can you believe without proof or evidence? Because if I give you proof or evidence, then you no longer need faith. However, faith is actually necessary. And the cool thing is faith can be, it can be accumulated over time. Like it's not something that like you either have it or you don't. It can actually be built up. And the way we build up faith, there's a multitude of ways, but one of my favorite ways of building up faith is it's twofold. Like there's like 7, but I'm going to give you two that I use daily. The first is gratitude. This is, it's almost cliche, like, oh yeah, I've heard that before. It's like, it works. It really, really works. Because when we get into gratitude, what happens is we get into harmony with the good things that we desire, right? We get into harmony with the abundance of the universe because we have to acknowledge, science shows us we live in literally an infinite universe, right? And things are both positive and negative. And if it's not one, it by nature, by default, has to be the other. There is no middle ground, right? Things are either moving in this direction or they're moving in this direction, but nothing stands still. So when we start to align ourselves with gratitude, we start to align ourselves with faith. We start to align ourselves with the positive energy. We start to align ourselves with the good that we desire, with uniform, with harmony, because the natural state of things is entropy. It's the law of entropy, the law of thermodynamics. Things want to naturally separate and break apart. So each day, I keep a gratitude journal. It's actually right here in my, I keep this gratitude journal. Every day I go through there and I just write down 10 things that I'm grateful for. And the key to doing this is when you're doing it, not to go through it as like a mundane exercise, but to actually go through what you're grateful for and feel the gratitude. It might be I'm grateful for waking up today, but actually feel it, right? Or it could be as silly as like, hey, I'm grateful that I got all my fingernails. Right? Like how weird would it be if I was missing a fingernail? Like it kind of just hurt all the time. Like this weird stuff, right? I'm grateful that I don't have to think about my stomach gestating. Like it just pushes food through it for me. Like imagine you had to sit there and think like digest. It just works. So you start to realize like, wow, there's so much to be grateful for. And that puts us in a state of, interestingly enough, I know that I have more than I ever will need already. And so now by living in that state, we start to attract more of that. And this is huge. This is huge because this is still to us unquantifiable. I'm sure in the future we will get technology that will be able to see this and measure it. But right now we can't quantify it. But this starts to put us in harmony with faith. So that's the first thing. The second thing is it's the affirmations. It's the actual, auto suggestion. It's reprogramming the subconscious mind because the subconscious mind does a majority of the heavy lifting. Right? Like that's where all the work is being done. So ultimately your brain, your brain isn't designed to make you happy. Your brain is designed to keep you alive. The cool thing about that is it does a pretty damn good job at it, especially like back in the days when we were in the jungles. You've heard this before. The difference is we're no longer in the jungle, so the threats are no longer life or death, right? Or I should say they are life or death. It's just very, very, very slow death. Like it's painfully slow, like 90 years slow death. So it's, when we start thinking about what it is we want to accomplish, and look at how this is going to come back full circle. When we start looking at what we want to accomplish, doing the new thing, doing the next thing, making the next deal happen, we're asking our mind to show us the result that will occur. The only problem is if it's something new, we haven't done it before, the mind can't show it to us. So the brain as a computer is looking for the file, can't find the file. What comes back? Error message, like file does not exist, black screen. The way the computer of our mind translates that to us is death, right? Like that's what it means. Like if we see a black screen, it's game over, we're done. So to protect itself from death, from the black screen, it will start to speak to you and it will start to urge you, don't do what you're about to do. Right. So when that comes, and it'll come nice and loud and nice and clear, and you won't have to like, wait, what do you say? No, it'll be very clear. You know, your body will freeze up. The self-talk of you can't do this is gonna, all right, this hasn't been done. Is this gonna work? All that stuff will start to come up. Great. When that comes up, phenomenal. They're about to help you write your affirmations. Because every time something pops into your head, write it down. Right. This is actually, by the way, how we make products. Write down all the reasons why, or in other words, like if these were objections, write down all the objections, get it on a list. And then on the opposite side, literally reframe every objection into its opposite and positive. And then out loud with your physical voice, speak those affirmations and start to use the affirmations. See if you ever studied Napoleon Hill, the author of Think and Grow Rich, what he discovered was if you tell yourself a lie often enough and long enough, even you yourself will start to believe it, even if you know it's a lie. Even if you know it's a lie. And this is like, we've seen this with people, like they'll repeat something over and over and over. Even if it wasn't true, they will start to believe it. Like when I was in high school, I once gave myself a tick because like my teacher had a tick. And so I was like making fun of him and I was like doing the tick all the time. And then after like a week, I realized like I was doing it without thinking anymore. And I was like, oh crap. And I'd given myself the tick. So I actually had to like spend like another week consciously getting rid of it. Because it's just what we repeat over and over and over starts to become a part of us. So when the negative stuff comes in, we make it a habit to reframe it and then to spit back the positive. It seems silly in the beginning. It seems like nothing's working in the beginning, but keeping in mind that we can only focus on one thing at a time. I'm either focused on going in this direction or I'm going in this direction. So when I consciously take control and start speaking a certain thing, and you know this from language, right? This is why we tell people to talk things out loud. It's hard to talk about one thing and think about something totally different. And if we do, you start to see it. Like this is how we catch people who are lying, because they'll start talking. You can see like there's like a delay because what's happening is the mind is having to switch back and forth, and we catch up on the switching.
Right.
So as you start to speak the affirmations, you start to lock it in. And a cool thing here, by the way, and I didn't really say this before, but this helps with developing the faith. You know how we said your mind looks for the file and it can't find it, so the black screen comes up? Do you do any visualization?
Not really, no.
Bro, it's major. Like I learned visualization not even from entrepreneurship. I learned it as I did parkour. So I was like an athlete between parkour, skateboarding, and snowboarding. I used to sit and like I would mentally train all the time. Like I learned tricks in my head and I'd like learn tricks in my dreams. And then I would go out the next day. Like sometimes I'd be woken up in the middle of the night and be like, oh shoot, like I just figured out how to do this trick. And I'd run outside and go on my skateboard. And lo and behold, it was exactly like what I saw and felt in my head. So if we visualize something vividly enough, what happens is we can take that, and the brain doesn't know the difference between reality and what's vividly imagined. We can take the visualization and actually input it into our memory. So although it never happened, I can imagine something that never occurred. I can put it in my memory. And so now when I ask my brain, hey, what happens when we do this? What happens when we go after the goal? What happens? The brain pulls into the memory file. Oh, here you go. And it starts to show you this. And the coolest thing is it shows it to you as a memory. So now you already feel it happened. And so now you start to build a sense of confidence around it. And this happens on a subconscious level. It's wild. So it's a part of like the training of the mind. It's everyone has like a different saying with a different ratio. Some people will say it's 80% mindset. Some people say it's 90% mindset. I agree with that. It's like, it's more mindset than anything else. And this is why two people could be doing the exact same thing, making calls at the exact same time, saying the exact same scripts, but one person does this and the other person does this. It's the different frequencies that they're on. It's the different beliefs that they hold in their head. It creates the reality in their world, which will then impact the results because they're tuned into a different frequency. Like we both have the radio on, but I'm tuned into a different station, so I'm getting different music. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. That's awesome.
So I know I just said a whole hell of a lot.
No, the analogies are super helpful. Like that, like it helps click so much better.
Oh, I'm glad to hear that. So yeah, I would say from those standpoint, like it's cool. Like I saw you taking some notes of like things that click for you. But if you're able to include visualization, and for anyone that struggles with visualization, typically what I'll tell them to do is like start with the things that you can see easily. Right. Like I used to start, like I would call a buddy of mine, Justin, up, not even an entrepreneur, just a good friend of mine. And I would just get him to play this game with me, where it's like I'd be like, yo, close your eyes, and I would describe things to him and get him to try and see things in his mind so that he can get better at like imaging with his mind. And then I'd have him do the same thing to me. And like we would just describe basic things like, okay, see a banana. Okay, great. Now see a banana sitting on top of a chair. Okay, now make the chair into a brown table stool. Right. And like we would just keep saying different things, and it just trains your mind. So whenever someone's like, oh, it's hard for me to visualize. Cool. Well, let's start with some basic stuff that you've already seen, and then we can start adding details that you create.
Right. Okay. Awesome.
Thank you, man.
No, I appreciate it. This is awesome.
100%, bro. So like I said a lot. Do you have any questions?
No, I mean everything you said was super clear. Like you said, I took some notes and stuff like that. I mean, it's definitely stuff that I'm gonna start giving a try and then see how it works out.
Heck yeah, man. Well, dang, Zach. Well, I'm happy that I was able to help. If I was able to help, I'm happy that like it clicked, or like some pieces of it clicked.
Yeah, it definitely did for sure, man. I appreciate it.
100%. Cool, man. Well, if you don't have any other questions or anything, I'll let you get back to your evening.
All right, no, I think I'm good. Thank you again so much. This was awesome.
No worries, brother. I'll talk to you soon.
All right, have a good night.
All right, take care.